One of my newer viewers had commented about my views towards the Cuban communist regime, or the Castroist regime, I guess would be more of a proper way of putting it, and stated that if Cuba became destabilized, my desires for Panamericanism, a Pax Americana, could not happen. I'm going to explain why that's not true, and why I'm saying this. Okay, so what people need to understand, I think a good outline for a Pan-American agreement would be the OAS, what the Organization of American States already has going on. But I would like to see something completely outside of the United Nations, and it was operated only amongst American states that are no longer controlled by old world powers. Okay, so that's the thing there. They can't be controlled by old world powers. So that takes out of it Jamaica and the Bahamas and Belize and Canada. These countries could not, in my opinion, participate in a true Pan-American agreement because they are not truly American countries. Geographically, they're American countries, but they are old world countries. They are under the reigns of old world powers. I do not believe they could cast off the old world powers and join the new world, okay? But until they would do that, they would not be, in my opinion, American countries, okay? So that's the first part. The other part is a lot of people don't understand that when I say Pan-Americanism, they think that I mean some hippie lovin', or I don't know what the hell they think I mean. But what I mean is I mean an agreement between all of the countries of the Americas, ideally from Greenland to Chile. Ideally, all of the countries would cast off their old world reigns and govern themselves. And there would be an agreement amongst the American states, not the United States of American states, but the American countries, the countries of the Americas, for mutual protection, mutual prosperity, and an agreement to allow law-abiding citizens that have clean background checks to pass more freely and to achieve employment more easily in any of the American countries. Similar to the EU, except what I would like to see is I would like to see every one of the countries of the Americas to be fiercely nationalistic and to not favor open borders per se, but I do think that there needs to be more, and this is where it gets, I think, confusing to some people. While I would like to see all of the countries fiercely nationalistic and to support strict boundaries between the various countries and have basically very clearly defined borders to every country in the Americas, I also want to see where there isn't more ease of people to move between the countries that are law-abiding people with clean background checks, and where there is an agreement to honor the laws of these various countries between the various countries. Meaning that if something, say an American, a U.S. citizen, commits a crime in Mexico, Mexico would either extradite that person back to the United States, or they would be prosecuted under Mexican law, according to Mexican law in Mexico, or any other country. I would like to see a respect for the laws of the various countries, and I do think there should be some sort of universal international law of the Americas, not a strictly defined American Union. I think that's what confuses people. I'm not promoting the idea of a strictly American Union. Some people got confused because I still promote U.S. nationalism, and they don't understand how can you promote U.S. nationalism and support Panamericanism. I don't just support U.S. nationalism. I support Mexican nationalism. I support Canadian nationalism. I want them to get out from under the jackboot of England. And I support Guatemalan nationalism. I support Peruvian nationalism, Argentinian nationalism, Uruguayan nationalism, Paraguayan nationalism. I support Belizean nationalism. I would like to see them become their own country. I support nationalism of all the countries in the Americas, and technically I support nationalism of all the countries in the world, because I think that the only way healthy foreign policy can take place is when countries have strictly defined nationalistic attitudes and act in their own best interest. Now, I support the creation of a Pan-American race, but I don't have to support that. That will come about regardless of who supports it, because races are created by a few things. Sorry, just ate popcorn. By a few things. Geographic separation, natural selection, and sexual selection. The rising of a Pan-American race, which will be the amalgamation, or however you say that, of Anglo-Americans, in which I'm including, Scandinavians, English, people of English descent, people of Irish descent, people of Scottish descent, people of German descent, people of French descent, etc., which are in North America, and the various Latin American people. And there will also, of course, be people of Pardo descendants in there as well. Pardo, I have to make that gentleman very happy with the Pardo. He liked to use the Pardo. What's a Pardo? A Pardo is somebody of Native American, white, or Mediterranean, and black ancestry. That's what a Pardo is. Pardo, 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 Pardo. There, I said it, Pardo. Now, why doesn't the destabilization of Cuba go against what I'm saying? Well, because Cuba is not a nationalistic country. It is a Castroist country. It is a monarchy. It is not acting necessarily in the best interest of the Cuban people. According to the Charter of the Organization of American States, despite the fact that Cuba is a member state, which I'm confused at how that even is, but countries like Venezuela and Cuba really should not be in the Organization of American States, because they are not acting in the best interest of their people, and they are not supporting the human rights of their people. Okay? Now remember, I am a fascist. That is my actual political ideology. I am a third positionist, which comes from fascism. Why don't I call myself that anymore? It's a bad word. You can't use bad words on the internet. That's why I'm a communist with U.S. values now. Okay? But I am actually a third positionist. Now, why does that come in? Well, because a third positionist recognizes where your rights come from. They don't come from God. They don't come from nature. They come from the government, okay? And people don't want to believe that. They want to go, oh, but my rights are God-given. It says it in the Constitution. And the Constitution was handed down by Moses from Mount Sinai, and his hair was white, and blah, 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 blah. No, your rights come from the government. Now, the thing with the U.S. government, which I think is probably the best government in the Americas at this point in time, is a government that is ideally of, by, and for the people, although it has become of, by, and for the oligarchy. But we have certain safeguards that have not been surpassed yet. But the thing is, the reason that we have the rights that we have in the United States, although they keep getting nipped away at by the government, is because our government is of, by, and for the people. But to believe that you are born with certain inalienable rights that were granted by your, the thing, as Joe Biden would say, is absolutely retarded. To believe that, you must be a retard. Okay? You are not granted any special rights because you exist. You are given rights by those that run the government, because you only have those rights in as much as the government seeks to enforce the laws to protect your rights. This is why people are going, a lot of people are got mad at me on Twitter when I was supporting martial law, because all these libertarian morons and all this. Why was I supporting for Trump to declare martial law? Why was I supporting Biden to declare martial law to handle the lawlessness on the streets, the gangs and the problems in the inner cities and now the suburbs, and the Black Lives Matter movement and the Antifa movement and the other movements that have sprang up and all this stuff? Why did I support martial law? Well, because you have no rights if you go outside your home and are murdered by Black Lives Matter or are murdered by Antifa. You don't have rights. Good luck having rights if you're dead. Okay? So my point is, with the Cuba destabilization, what my view is with Cuba is hopefully what will happen is the United States will set up a Cuban puppet government that is run essentially by the United States or in close relation with the United States. I don't think that the United States could justify taking Cuba as a territory, although I would love to see that. I would like to see Cuba be made our 51st state. Hell, Florida is basically Cuban, and basically Florida is Cuba, Israel, and redneck heaven, all put into one state. But my point is I would love to see Cuba made a territory or state of the United States. I don't see that happening. What I hope to see happen is the immediate stabilization of Cuba by the United States or by the Cuban people. But that's asking a lot of the Cuban people, who have lived under the Castroist regime for so many decades, okay? So what I'm saying is, what I would like to see in Cuba is I would like to see the stabilization of it. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to give up communism. This is what people don't understand. Everybody's like, oh, they're rallying against communism. No, they're rallying against corruption. Okay, and that's like, what's funny is I don't support what happened on January 6th by any stretch of the imagination. I support the full prosecution of everybody that was involved in the January 6th riot at the Capitol, which, by the way, is nothing compared to what Black Lives Matter has been doing since the end of the Obama administration to this country. But what you need to keep in mind is the people that rioted on January 6th thought they were rioting against corruption. They weren't rioting against democracy. They were rioting against who they thought stole their country. They were wrong, at least in my opinion. They were wrong, extremely wrong, and they were made up of morons, but that's what they were rioting against. They were not rioting against democracy. The people, the multiracial group of people, which were organized by a black dude named Ali Alexander, they were not rioting against democracy. They were essentially rioting for democracy. And they did not choose their whiteness over democracy like Nancy Pelosi said. What they did is they thought they were fighting for their country, despite the fact that they were brain-dead retards that were all trumped up, okay? But the point is, that's what's going on in Cuba. They're not fighting against communism. They're fighting against the shortcomings of the Castroist regime, and the lack of food, and what they're saying are COVID vaccinations. I doubt that it has much to do with COVID. I was also very disappointed to see Roger Waters come out and talk about how America is so mean. They're so mean to Cuba. We basically run Cuba. Wah. The fact of the matter is Cuba is insane to the point where the Soviets had to explain to Cuba why, like, Castro kept trying to encourage the Soviets to nuke the United States, and the Soviets kept trying to explain to Castro, dude, if we do that, the fallout is going to blow over to you morons and kill everybody on your island. But this is the thing, he couldn't understand it because he didn't grasp it. And this is a dude that put his own sister in a prison where the toilet was a hole in the floor. Okay, this is the kind of people you're talking about that run Cuba. Okay, these are not good people. Okay, so like people like to, and like I said, it's unfair to say everything's bad about Cuba. Like Bernie Sanders said, there are good things about Cuba. They practice regenerative agriculture. They made super cows. They have very good doctors, like Roger Waters explained. They train a lot of doctors. They're medical missionaries, kind of like how Juan Perón had the army of nurses to help fight the medical inadequacies in Argentina. And I forgot to do a review of that book I ordered about that. But yeah, what's his face? So Juan Perón basically turned Argentina into a completely healthy country in a matter of years. And then, of course, he was ousted and then later won, and, a lot of craziness down there. But my point is there are some positives about Cuba. If the Cuban people take over the Cuban government, and if the United States stabilizes the Cuban government and inserts a puppet government into Cuba, it doesn't mean the positives have to go away. Hopefully the negatives would, like the abuse of the Cuban people by the government and the violation of people's basic human rights. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Destabilization of Cuba does nothing but benefit a Pan-American outcome, as long as it's immediately restabilized. Okay, but it's also a necessity. It is an absolute necessity to restabilize Cuba with U.S. See, this is the thing. Like I said, I'm a U.S. nationalist. Cuba is a risk. Cuba has always been a risk to the United States because the people that run it are insane. But beyond that, you can't trust that another government like China or Russia, which are belligerents of the United States or potential belligerents of the United States, or even, who knows, North Korea could put somebody in there, or Iran, or something like that. And then you have that mess on the, right there, right by Florida. You know what I mean? If they can come here by raft, shoddily made raft, a shoddily made raft out of garbage. If people can get to the United States on rafts made of garbage from Cuba, we don't need a military power like Russia or Iran or China, or where they have actual decent ability to, make things that could attack the United States. It would be against the U.S. national interest to have influence from one of these old world powers that close to the United States. And that's all for this video. The links in the description will be the OAS. You know what? No, that's not all for this video. What I want to point out to the gentleman that made that comment, I get concerned about people that have fascinations with dictators. He mentioned that he had some fascinations with some of the South American dictators. This is where me and Juan Perón see things pretty much eye to eye. I don't see politics as anything special. I've never had an unhealthy fascination with any dictators. Not the boy in Germany. We all know his name, Schicklgruber. What? I never had an unhealthy fascination with him. I never had an unhealthy fascination with Stalin. I never had an unhealthy fascination with Juan Perón or Mussolini or any of these. I never played dress up. Okay? I think what happens, and this is one of the things, I'm actually amazed that I attract people with these types of obsessions with these dictators. I think that a lot of these dictators, whether it's Stalin or Hitler or Juan Perón or any of these, and Juan Perón was not really a dictator, and neither was Hitler really. But when you start boiling it down and looking and picking it apart, I see their politics as very worthwhile and very worthwhile in getting done what needs to be gotten done for the people of their countries. Okay? When you start becoming obsessed with the human, the person behind it and the mythology of the person behind it, it becomes unhealthy. And I've never been able to grasp that. These people that, like, there's a lot I agree with these people about. There's a lot I disagree with them about. For example, with Juan Perón, he had an unhealthy attachment to the Catholic Church and was surprised that the Catholic Church worked with the communists against him when it turned out they were the ones hiding his wife's body and, things like this. And, I mean, you can't... I never understood anyone's unhealthy attachments to world leaders, regardless of who they were. Even, especially like Barack Obama or Donald Trump, for example, the two new ones. They might have cults even more fervent than the old, the dude in Germany or the dude in Russia that came from Georgia. I mean, you got some crazy people. I mean, that's why the United States is cut down the middle, is unhealthy problems, unhealthy attachments to politics, which are nothing more than a means to serve the will of the people as directed through the government. Think of politics as a means to uphold your human rights, and nothing more and nothing less. And that's all for this video.